The World Health Organization has identified 10 core life skills, with self-awareness being number one.
Really?
Self-awareness is number one. And number two is empathy. And we talked about that earlier because we know that resides in the folds, the brain called the insula.
Welcome to For the Health of It, Because You Can, where host Susan Robinson dives into the 8 categories of wellness with experts from various fields. We offer tips and information to help you thrive in all areas of individual wellness.
All right, now we're going to talk with Joe about self-awareness. How do you teach about self-awareness when you're at OMA?
Well, self-awareness is the ability to perceive and understand the things that make you who you are as an individual, including your personality and your values and your actions. And one of the ways that we teach that at OMA is we do a self-discovery inquiry, if you will, in which we have the participants in class ask themselves a short inquiry and really tuning into the presence of looking at themselves through their own eyes and asking themselves, who am I really? And so that is one way to kind of explore self-awareness, doing some self-discovery. And what's I think is really neat about self-awareness is that the World Health Organization has identified 10 core life skills, with self-awareness being number one.
Really?
Self-awareness is number one. And number two is empathy. And we talked about that earlier because we know that resides in the folds, the brain called the insula. But self-awareness is the number one core life skill that the World Health Organization has identified. Some other things, some other ones are critical thinking, creative thinking, decision-making, problem-solving, coping with stress, coping with emotions, that type of thing. But self-awareness is at the top of that list.
Wow. And I know we just, in our busy lives, and how many people have gone, myself included, where I went for years without really knowing me, because I always had serving other people all the time first, putting people first.
And I love telling this story. I was at a presentation, and my meditation teacher had us go around the room and introduce ourselves to someone that we didn't know. And there are about 50 people in the room. And so I go around, my name is Joe Holcomb. I'm from Oklahoma City. I've lived in Dallas for 13 years before moving back to help with my parents as they got older. So I went into this whole thing about how I would describe myself. And then she had us do this self-inquiry about who am I really, this self-discovery to help with self-awareness. And once we did that, we were really kind of tapping into some of our values and how we saw ourselves through our own mind's eye. And then she had us walk back over to that person and introduce ourselves from that perspective. So one of my values is ease. I like things to be in ease and be in flow. So what I found myself doing is going back over to her and say, this individual I was working with, and say, hi, did you know that ease is one of my values? And I love dogs. I love to go on cruises. Oh, by the way, my name is Joe. So, we have this self-identity but really self-awareness and self-discovery really lets us kind of open that up and see ourselves just really holistically. That's
an interesting thing to think about, because how many times we don't do that.
Right.
So, stress management is my bag. I love that because that was my education. But tell me about stress accumulation.
So, stress can really just build up over time and really wreak havoc on the body and the central nervous system. And we don't even really know that it's happening. So it just accumulates. So we can look at a few definitions here. One is stressors, anything that causes the stress response. And the stress response is, like we talked about earlier, the amygdala signaling to the adrenal glands, release cortisol into the body, adrenaline, and just lots of inflammation. That's a stress response. And then too much of that over a long period of time is distress. But I love this term, eustress. And eustress is, we can also call it good stress. And we all think that, I always would think, good stress is good. Well, too much of it isn't. And so it can just accumulate. We can have kind of more, more debilitating stress, but too much good stress or eustress is bad as well. And it just accumulates over time and begins to impact the cognitive output. I know when I am overloaded or overwhelmed or stressed, I just can't come up with my thoughts. Things aren't flowing nice. It affects the mood and really just be able to function properly if we just have too many demands. And the anecdote to that, as my teacher would say, is mindfulness.
Yeah, for sure. I think of, good stress being when you're getting married or, having a new baby and stuff. But again, lots of change in that.
Right.
Even though it's good, there's still a lot of change.
And good stress also gets us up in the morning to get ready, to go to work, to bring in, provide for our families, put food on the table. But these, some of the ones that you've mentioned, those are big stressors, even though they can be good.
Right. So tell me, like, a lot of people don't think of environmental stressors. What would you say are some of those stressors that we're talking about?
Environmental stressors, I think about traffic, going to work. How do we get to work? Road construction, things that we're listening to on the news while we're on the way to work. Pollution, the aesthetics. What does our world look like around us? Is that in order? So, this environment can really impact how we see ourselves and how we see the world.
Right. I've even read one time where highly processed foods, all the additives can also infect our environment, that somehow impacted as well, and all the pesticides and, all of those things that can overdo it for sure. So explain how you overdo it with the stress. Like, what is that overactivation?
So stress accumulates due to overactivation of the stress response, just living in that fight or flight response just over and over and over. And this creates the overproduction of the stress hormones. And we know that these stress hormones are building up in the body, and there has to be some way to release this over time. One way to release some of this stress accumulation is mindfulness, meditation, but also movement, exercise, dancing, turning the radio up really loud, singing off key as I do, and really moving like, when no one's watching. So this stress can really accumulate, but we're going to have to discharge it some way. And so I always say, when I talk to people, sometimes I'll say, are you dealing, how do you deal with this? And some people will say, well, I don't, I just ignore it.
Yeah.
But do you really? Because it's accumulating. It has to be discharged at some time.
I agree with that. People push things down for sure.
Right.
So,
but one of the ways that I like to discharge stress is to dance. Just turn on music in my house by myself and just dance.
I think of that movie, Mrs. Doubtfire, and he's dancing and cleaning, and I tell people all the time, just to get them moving, I was like, put on music and dance while you're doing it. Just have a good time.
Right.
Make it fun. So, I noticed, please explain to me the power of attention.
Said earlier, it is a currency, and we want to spend it wisely. And so, one of the benefits that we talked about earlier of meditation and mindfulness practice is, or there were some misconceptions that people thought it would make them too relaxed and not competitive enough. But like I said, a lot of athletes will use meditation to really hone their attention, hone their focus. So how do you want to use it? And what you look for, you find.
Right. And that focus, I feel like some days I just am spent energy-wise. And it's like, what did I really do? Mm-hmm. But it was because it was the whole multitasking while at work. And multitasking is a big thing that robs you, I think, of your energy.
Right.
For sure. Because we're not focusing on one thing at a time.
On one thing at a time. Yeah. So, and what you'll look for, you will find. So if I'm looking for the beauty, or if I'm looking for the kindness or the ease in the world, I can use my attention to move in that direction. And what you pay attention to will also have an effect on you. So we just really want to be protective of that, treat it as currency, treat it as precious, and use it wisely.
Because it's yours.
It's yours.
Yeah.
It's yours. And I love that you talked about multitasking. We can train our attention in 3 different ways. One is monotasking, doing one thing at a time. And really, that's all we can do unless it's a rote activity such as folding laundry, doing dishes, unloading the dishwasher. I can do that and watch TV and talk to a friend. I mean, I can do all of those things at one time because it's a rote activity. But when it is an activity that really needs my undivided attention, that is a way that, monotasking is one way to train the attention. And the other one is to focus on, I'm going to go back real quick. Monotasking, I've come from a healthcare background. And so we know that accuracy and efficiency in healthcare is very important.
It's vital.
We want to make sure that everything is safe. So, I know surgeons and nurses will do a timeout before they do a surgery. Everyone's attention. We stop what we're doing. Do we have the right patient? What surgery are we doing? And are we doing it on the right part of the body?
Yeah.
So monotasking, and everyone needs to be in agreement. And the other way to train your attention is a focus in the present moment, not what we did earlier in the day, what we're going to do later in the day, but in the present moment, savoring the moment, and just really having a connection with each activity. And what research has shown is that individuals that are experiencing suffering and difficult times in their life fare better and report better connections with themselves when they are focused and just staying with whatever they're dealing with versus trying to distract themselves to alleviate the suffering by doing multitasking. So just being in the present moment, even if it's suffering, being in that present moment. And the last way to train our attention is focus on the inner experience. Meditation really draws the senses inward, and It's also, a way you could say is interior landscape, interoception, and there's just a lot of benefits to just focusing on the inner experience.
Yeah, people are not sometimes comfortable with that.
Right.
I know that myself, if something has hurt me deeply, I distract and get busy, and that's how I got through it.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that I was being resilient when in actuality I paid for it later.
Right.
For sure. So let's see where else we're going to go with this. I think we're eventually going to do another meditation. Am I right, Joe? And this one's going to be in that direction of which direction are we going to go in?
We'll do a self-awareness, a self-discovery, what I call an inquiry.
Okay.
Kind of give you an example of some of the things that we bring into the class over at OMA around self-awareness and self-discovery.
Okay. Let's try that.
Okay. So I invite you to sit in a comfortable position with a tall spine and deepen your breaths for just a few breaths in through the nose and out through the nose. And letting your breath return to its natural rhythm and depth. And I invite you to close your eyes or look down in a soft gaze, if that's more comfortable for you. And simply ask yourself, who am I really? Who am I really? And I invite you to turn your attention to the presence that is looking through your eyes. Presence that is looking through your eyes. This is the real you. It's your present that exists beyond roles and your responsibility. Some people will call this soul or spirit, the essential part of you. It's that is ever changing and ever present, or never changing, ever present. And this is you that has been with you since you've been born. Then beginning to bring some movement into the hands and the fingers, wiggling the toes, maybe bringing some movement into the body. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
So have you had people comment on what came out of that when they did that meditation?
I have. And for some people, it can be very kind of softening to their heart, if you will. It can take them back a little bit because they may say, I haven't been that still for a long time. And what I will hear people say is they will start coming up with maybe some values that are important to them. I listed one earlier. Important to me is I like to live in ease. Some people may have this, say, I felt, I see myself as trustworthy. I see myself as kind. I see myself as wanting to be of service to others. So really just giving them that time just to say, to be still and be quiet and say, who am I really? It's amazing what comes up for people when they take the time out to go within a little bit.
Joe, I really appreciate you coming to share with us. With this time of in our season, we're actually focusing on spiritual health, and this is definitely something that is important, I think, for people to pay attention to, because, again, I hate to keep bringing up the pandemic, but it really did a number on us, and it changed us. And so this is a good way to get us back focused and be able to get back to who we were and are before the pandemic happened. So appreciate you coming by and sharing with me.
Well, great to see you as always, Susie. Thanks for having me come over.
Hope you have a great day.
Thank you for listening to For the Health of It. For more wellness tips, information, and videos, visit the Thrive webpage. For questions, contact us at thrive@omes.ok.gov.